Here we are in the Week 2 Assignments module, which is due September 3rd. For this week's reading, you'll be working through Chapter 1, which is all about the 19th century and Victorian graphic design. You may be interested in this week's e-lectures, Textile Designs by William Morris. Morris was a pivotal figure in the history of design, and not only did he design books and typefaces, he was also an architect, textile designer, writer, and socialist. Also an interesting article about Lydia Pinkham, who was a middle-aged housewife and mother who created home remedies. And this is an article about the advertisements that she used for those. Now this week you'll do your first Bibliography and Design in Context assignment, where you will select a work of graphic design which reflects the realities or perceptions of the historical period related to this week's reading. And of course, you need to limit it to this week's reading, which is all about the 19th century. And the first thing you'll do is research the work of graphic design, and you'll examine the intent of the work and how meaning and value operated within it. You'll also talk a little bit about the context of the work of art, and then you'll also respond to your colleagues to participate in an ongoing discussion. So the first thing you'll do is compile a bibliography for your work of graphic design, and you need to include at least one book, one journal article, and one web link. And remember that your bibliography must be in the Chicago citation style. Click that link, and that takes you into the Research Tools section, and this is what your bibliography format should look like for the various types of resources that you find. And then you'll write a little creative brief using the questions below as guidelines and write a few paragraphs about your work of graphic design. And be sure that it's a work of graphic design and not a work of art. And the first thing you'll do is identify the piece of graphic design with the designer's name, the title, the date. And then you'll give a brief biographical background of the graphic designer. You'll also describe the message of the work and how it's conveyed. Is it a literal message? Is it symbolic or maybe metaphorical? And then you'll talk a little bit about the use of formal elements. And formal elements include things like line, shape, color, balance, proportion, and even typography. You don't have to include all of these, but do talk about them to understand how the designer conveys their message through these formal elements. And then you'll include a little bit about the historical influences, the stylistic and specific designers that may have influenced your designer's work. And then too, you're going to find at least two historical connections with this work of graphic design, so that you can understand it within the context of its time. And this may be something like a book, maybe, that was published during the time that your piece of graphic design was produced, maybe a piece of music that was popular at the time, maybe some sort of political or social event that happened at the time, just to understand what was going on in the rest of the world at the time. And then you'll post your image, bibliography, and brief to the discussion board. Now you'll also want to respond to at least two of your colleagues' posts with an additional historical event related to the design example, or an additional image by the same designer and with a little bit about how it relates to the original design example. And then to turn in your assignment, you'll just click this link up here, the Bibliography and Design in Context link, and that will take you into this week's discussion board forum. You just click the reply button and you can add your post. And this week, you'll also begin working on the conceptual phase of your museum exhibition project, which is due on September 17th. So you have plenty of time to work on this. And basically what you're going to do is, of course, create a museum exhibition on a specific topic of graphic design. So what you'll need to do is just look through the textbook in advance and find something, a topic or a graphic designer that interests you. And your presentation, you don't really have to worry about this at this point, but it can be in a format that you choose, like Microsoft Word, maybe a PowerPoint presentation, might be a multimedia presentation in After Effects, or maybe an online application. So what you're going to do this week is just select a topic and develop a concept, which is basically your exhibition topic and overview. So read a little bit about what that topic and overview entails. So your topic is going to have a description of the exhibition topic with your theme. You want to talk a little bit about the goals and objectives of your exhibition, a description of how your exhibition or the narrative will unfold. Maybe your exhibition will have a mood or personality. And then think about the target audience for your exhibition. I've also included some examples of museum exhibition overviews. Click those links. Here's an exhibition overview that was held recently at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. And you can see that this exhibition overview is only a few short paragraphs. It's 3 paragraphs here, but it describes what the exhibition is about and some other exhibitions. But be sure to have a look at these so that you can understand what goes into an exhibition overview. Here's one at the London Transport Museum. Again, it's a few short paragraphs, but it does describe what the exhibition is about and the reasons for it. So be sure to have a look at those. And again, you have time for the exhibition overview and topic. It's not due this week. It's due on September 17th. So we have a few weeks to work on that. In this week's bibliography, I include some links to topics that are covered in the textbook. You might want to read a little bit more about how lithography developed in the 19th century. It's a very important technique for graphic designers. Also the Stickley Museum. The Stickleys are covered in this week's textbook. So there's this week's assignment. If you have any questions, be sure to email me. Otherwise, have fun.